Good morning. For me, thankfully dry, thankfully not raining, thankfully temperature perfect, lovely and warm, and I have a visitor. And Matt, who's inside. Today's the day, folks. It's going to get finished. The weather has worked against us, the temperature has worked against us, timings have worked against us, bad backs, broken brakes, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, but that's in the past. Matt's here now, he's going to do a pucker job, well excited, can't wait to get the Chernobyl nuclear bunker down for good. So we're going to keep jumping backwards and forwards with little hints and tips on fiberglassing. Matt keeps collaring me saying put your camera on, so we're going to jump backwards and forwards, learning a little bit more about fiberglassing. Enjoy the show. You're on.
Beautiful. Right, what we're going to do, this is a flow, actually a flow coat, but it is just of resin. It's not a flow coat with top coat, if you know what I mean. So we're going to smash the non-tissued areas with a flow coat, which is resin. That will smooth out the fibre pattern and make it a nicer looking job, but who gives a toss because it's all underwater. And then with the resin that's left over, we'll make the bonding paste just to bring that all nice and flush. It's all been sanded down, all been dusted out, but we've got loads and loads of flies, and it was like a menagerie down there when I got here this morning with flies and spiders and all sorts in there. Now, there are no pinholes in this fiberglass, otherwise I wouldn't be putting this on, I'd be doing some re-fiberglassing, but we had got that water underneath there, hadn't we? But it hasn't breached it. It was never going to breach the old fiberglass, because it never did. I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that one? I was talking too much nonsense.
So you were going to go around the...
Yeah, put the gunge in the paste there. Ah, that was it. And then once this resin has gone off, then I'll denib it again. Because even though it's covered up really well like this, you've got a fly like this here, just 2 more, 3 more.
They're everywhere.
They can get into it, and obviously if I see them, I'll denib them and get them out. And one job I did years ago, and this is one of my boring stories, I did a job for somebody inside, like, you know, look at your shed, big summer house.
Yep.
Indoors, a timber frame, timber line pond. Really nice smooth job, as always. And he phoned me up the next day, he says, Matt, what's all these lumps in the floor? I said, what lumps? Send me a picture. And he'd taken the picture from out there, and you could see these really nasty, horrible lumps in the fiberglass. I'm like, I didn't leave it like that. I said, get a closer photo for me, would you? We got a closer photo, and it was all ladybirds.
Oh no!
This had been built, and the vapour killed them all, and they all just dropped straight in the wet flow coat we was there with the chisel cutting them all off. Now, remember the other week you asked me how long I was going to be here for this final session. This is the last time I'm coming here.
Do you promise?
So just like I asked my brakes guy last night, how did he get into mobile mechanics? I've got to ask you the question, what's the most amount of times you've ever had a fiberglass guy around to do this one?
You're it.
So I said, allow just a few hours really, and some of that is going to be curing time for this. Now, as I said, that's where I was going with this originally. There are no pinholes in this fiberglass. This is not why I'm putting this resin on, to fill pinholes. It's just to smooth the fibre pattern out. Now, when it comes to timing on how long I'm going to be here, there ain't no rush. As long as the job's right, as you know, it's as long as it takes, and as many visits as it takes. He's going to be kicking me up the arse later when that camera goes off. And we'll put about 1% in that, which is going to take some time to go off. But with how warm it is, it was really cool in here, but you know when I got here earlier on, it was cool, wasn't it? And it's really warmed up now, so if I wanted to cut this time right down, I could absolutely put like 2 or 3 tubes of this hardener into that, and it would go off like a rocket ship. But what it would do, that would actually create pinholes in the resin, because when you put any hardener in that, oxygen is created in the reaction, and then the resin would then go off that fast. This oxygen wouldn't have time to, or it would kind of get to the surface, and then as the bubbles burst, leaves what looks like pinholes in the fiberglass, but it's not. It's just pinholes in the resin because it's going off ridiculously quickly. Thoroughly uninteresting fact there for you, Steve.
I'll add that to the rest.
Now, again, talking about contamination, if this was the flow coat proper, I may well put and especially if it's a real gungy environment, I may well put on some shoe protectors. Yeah, we've got a few bits being shed off my boots, but we're not overly concerned about it because this is all going to be sanded down again prior to putting the flow coat on proper. So this is I call this a flow coat because it's resin going onto gone off fiberglass, but it's not top coat. Top coat's the one in the big silver tin that you lifted for me earlier to save putting my back out any further than it's already out. So that's ready to do the paste for the skimmer.
Okay.
Just gotta find. Kind of the way I do this is going to be the way I do the flow coat, but I was thinking, would I do the technical parts first, maybe around the way? I might mix up a tad of flow coat, top coat proper, just to get around the technical bits, and then literally just smash it on all the flat sections. I might do. I'm slowing down in my old age, so I might have to do it.
Wait till you get to my age.
Again, I'm going to slop this all over it. Resin is going to be going on the floor, but I don't want this going off on the floor leaving lumps while I'm putting that on. So this won't totally get rid of the fibre pattern, but it will certainly make a nicer job of it than if it wasn't there. And the reason there's no tissue on, at that time I just couldn't get any. Or the bit I did have, you've had on the top to give you that appearance, that it's kind of all done. So, rather than just carry on and turn my back on that, these drips here, I'll just take those drips out. So when's the next extension, Steve? Talking about me coming back, we're gonna, by the time I'm dead, we're gonna end up at the bottom of the garden then. Pushing me around in a wheelchair.
In answer to that question, and my marriage is at stake here, no, this is the grand finale.
Yeah, but your coir important, Steve. Come on.
Oh yes, the coir important. More importantly, I'm supposed to be building a squirrel feeder. Am I carrying on with that?
Cat's not here, is she? Hearing you say that.
Yeah, it's still being recorded though, and you can watch it afterwards.
We're having stuff chucked at me in the pond.
Yeah.
And the other thing this does, this little operation, in some form, this roller will be shedding its fibres into this resin, yeah?
Yep.
Which means they won't be going, or they will be minimised going into the flow coat proper, yeah? So less denibbing. Every job there's always some denibbing. Chap phoned me up the other day or sent me some pictures of his job. Barely anything to do to it. Corners. You might say this is unnecessary because it's going to get covered in algae. The other reason I'm doing this is that it just makes the flow coat proper easier to put on and lay off, rather than really cranking it into these, you know, the fibre pattern. I mean, you need to kind of be really close to this to see the difference this is making.
Yeah, it's difficult to see on camera. I can see the sheen off the side, but I can't see anything on the front.
I'd rather do this than not, to be honest. You know, it's, like I say, it's not to cover pinholes, and it's not to fill pinholes. It's just to give it a better appearance. You know, you can set the internet on fire going on about whether tissue is necessary.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, look at that finish and look at that. What's a customer want?
Yeah.
I don't have to put tissue on if a customer specifically doesn't want tissue. I don't have to put it on. But I've got a job to do next week where it's like a goldfish pond basically. Decent size, really weird shape. Or, you know, more fish pond shape, not formal like this. And if it's going to be warm, it's going to be very, very difficult to even get tissue on it, yeah? And then you've got to think to yourself, a pond full of plants and frogs, do you really want to bother putting tissue on a nice, you know, on a rough, and I mean it's a really rough concrete surface, so we'll be sort of deploying the old system of 2 450s that will cover just about everything. So if you were going to have a go at doing this DIY, 2 450s is about your cover just about every surface known to man.
I've been doing DIY 40 years, and no way on God's earth would I attempt fiberglassing or working with gas. Not a hope.
Well, gas could kill you and your property, couldn't it?
Gas explodes. Fiberglass just smells bloody awful. I think the lens on my GoPro's melting with these fumes.
It's getting pretty strong in the bottom here.
Alright, give us a shout when you get near the end and I'll come back. So what I've said to Matt is I've made myself available to give him hand, feed him, keep him hydrated. Just look at the top of the summer room. Myself and Kat was thinking about putting Mount Fuji over the top of the summer room, because the original position was underneath the sill of the greenhouse and over the top of the pond, and now that is too wide, or too deep rather. Answers on a postcard. I cannot tell you how giddy I am at the prospect of having it finished. I got so giddy I even mowed the lawn.
Right, I'm going to show you a little trick. Right, as you know, Steve, obviously, this is for your viewers, we've got 3 returns, right? Now, they were protruding into the pond by about 2 or 3 inches or so.
Yep.
So, the thing that created all the dust you can see lying around is that we've taken it down with the flat disc. Now, there's a couple of ways of finishing this pipe off. You can bridge this all out with some bonding paste that I'm going to put in the skimmer face there to lock all the fiberglass in place there. Just let me have that camera, Steve, and I'll just show you. Right, the fiberglass is tucked into the back and the underside of that skimmer there as best it can go, but then we'll put some bonding paste in there and that'll bring it flush to the foam, so A, nothing sticking out, and B, totally locked in place with the bonding paste once that sets. And then I'll flow coat up to this edge here, and then Steve, when the flow coat's gone off, yeah, you know when you're putting your window in?
Yeah.
One window, oh right, on cue, hello Splints.
Dog window.
1 window, 2 window.
Yep.
Just run some sealant over the finishing point there. I would willingly do that for you now and every customer, but flow coat contacting uncured sealant is no good, but you want it on top anyway to lock everything in. So a couple of ways of doing these pipes: either bring some bonding paste in to blend it in, or I can re-fiberglass over the top of it, and it bridges that finishing point where the fiberglass joins onto the pipe, which is susceptible in very rare and unusual circumstances of releasing. Now I've just absolutely hammered it with that flat disc. Now if that was going to release away from that, it would have done, but let's get these real nice and flat for you, as flat as we can get. I mean, even at that, that's no more dangerous to your fish than what your bottom drain lid would be, is it? That you can see. But let's just smooth them out a little bit more. We've got to mix up some resin anyway, because you can see a finish between the top, which has been tissued, and the bottom, which hasn't. So all that is going to get a resin wash just to fill the fibre pattern. And then while I've got a bit of resin out, I'll just drop a little bit of glass over this one, and I'll flat that one out a little bit more because it just wants a bit more attention. But I just wanted to show you this trick here. Once this fiberglass has gone hard, that is pretty much the end of the story. And the only way you can get it back, well, you're never going to get it back to a liquid, not by any method I know. It's just that's I mentioned a second ago about releasing away from that pipe. We'll take you into these corners in a minute on the existing fiberglass.
Yep.
And you can see that it is released away from the existing fiberglass, yeah? Which is exactly why we wanted to reskin the whole inside of the pond. Because if you just come down to here,
yep,
like we spoke about just now with the sealant on there, to stop it releasing away,
yep,
you're going to see old fiberglass down there and a nasty black line of sealant. So just reskin the whole lot.
Doesn't take long with a bit of heat, does it?
That's a lot of heat, isn't it?
That's a lot of heat, isn't it?
It's glowing, basically glowing, isn't it, on the end, so just... And then once that's cooled down again, obviously it'll set rock hard again. And then we take a piece of sandpaper, which I've got somewhere in this pond, just there. So, you can't get it any more flush than absolutely flush like that.
That's fine. That's
Now, what I'll probably, once I've gone over it with the resin, if there's any contamination in that, I'll sand it down again. It's, when I say a sand down, it's literally just a kiss like that. And that sort of denibs any contamination, any fibres that are stood up, which you do get on the edges in particular, if you see that, look.
quite difficult to see that, but it's definitely there.
Right. That bit of an aggressive sanding down, and then if I just grab the camera again, rather than take you up the top there, let me show you. This is where it's released away, look. You see where it's gone an opaque colour rather than solid green like that, and that, this area here, it's just released away from the surface.
To do with the wax element.
Yeah, I mean there's a much better example of it. You know, the fiberglass that has formed the skin, that's as strong as the original, yeah? But it just means it's dinked itself away from the surface. You can treat it, you can power sand it, you can do all manner of things to it, but you can't guarantee that it is not going to release away.
Work it out.
So, just prep that ready for the This was done on the first day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which, when you look at this, admittedly, it is far from the tidiest. Where did I get to when the water started pissing in?
Yeah.
Because they've got. We had a bit of excitement, didn't we? And then it just carried on for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd been back here long before. So again, nice and smooth. Put some paste in that. When the flow coat goes on here, I'll sort of wipe it on the pipe, and then I basically look with a really close look at that, just to make sure it hasn't released away, which on this one it hasn't, but all the same it's going to have some resin on it anyway, and flow coat. Once that's all gone off, when you put your windows in, just put a small bead on and just go around it a couple of times.
Rightio.
Over the space of a couple of hours. Very unlikely to release away, but it is not unknown to do so. So rather than taking a risk, belt and braces, put some sealant on, boom, but that hasn't released away. That one's not released away, and that one's not released away.
This one and this one are original, from the original pond. That is only that's the new addition.
Right.
So I've no worries with all three, but least of all these two. They haven't been an issue for the last 3 years.
Yeah, and we've taken them back even.
And we've taken them back, yeah. You know,
A little bit of resin left over, just enough to make the bonding paste to go in there.
you have some resin for my barrel.
No, I'll just mix up some more. What have you decided to make with the barrel? Toy storage or something?
Yeah, the lid will be used to put adult pints on, and I've put a door in the barrel so the grandkids can have their outdoor toys in it. Right, it's about as close as I can get now.
Just brings it flush.
Yeah.
Because this is resin based, it's waterproof, yeah?
Yeah.
Then we're going to have flow coat on top of it. And then some polyurethane sealant when you put the windows in.
Yeah.
Rather than come up to the plastic here at the edge.
Yep.
And risk it coming away from the plastic.
Uh-huh.
And have all your water pour down the back. This is my preferred method of doing it.
Well, it's tried and tested.
And you're perfectly happy with that. I mean, it's the slightest protrusion, you know.
No, not worried in the slightest, because it hasn't changed from 3 years ago.
Except being less proud.
Yeah, it's less prone because you've added more fiberglass on.
I totally get what people say, you know, where you don't want protrusions, but again, you know, as with all things,
They'll find something to scratch on.
but did a job for a couple. I'll shorten the story. Did a job for a couple, and it was going over old paint, and they'd got well below water level, good foot below, like, you know, inch and a half, whatever's diameter returns, just sticking straight out into the pond, and the fish never caught themselves at all.
No.
And another one of my little stories is that I was round. Have you seen that? I bet you haven't been on my website for ages. That 3D thing that builds the pond.
Right.
That's based on a customer of mine, Nick, his pond, yeah?
Yep.
And I sat there the one night, and I've got his bottom drain in the middle, and one of the fish, out of about 15 of them, just went to the bottom drain and glanced itself off like that. And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm no fish health expert whatsoever, yeah? But I said to him, is that parasites or something? He says, keep watching, Matt. I'm like, what's going to happen here then? first fish that flashed. It wasn't a flash as in trying to get something off a gill or something. It was like a glance and a glide off back round the pond. So I kept watching, it came round and it did it again, and every single fish in that pond followed that fish's lead, yeah, and just kissed itself just off that bottom drain. They all did it twice and just carried on about their business in the pond. It was honestly, I couldn't believe it.
Maybe they got bored.
I'm like, you can't. The whole stuff I was going through in my mind, I'm like, you can't have trained a fish to do that, but they actually did it, and they weren't, you know, fighting to get to the bottom drain for the rubbing post. It was just like a little gentle glance, really graceful. And I said, have you scraped them? He says, yeah, but you know, the first time they did it, I was a bit worried, but now we just sit there watching them do it. It's great, he said. True story, that.
Right, we'll have a quick look at this barrel, then you can understand where I'm coming from. I'll follow you. So the top, I want Matt to put a resin coat on to make it even more waterproof. And then I've built a door on the front of this. That was a proper job trying to get that correct curve. Just got to give it a vac inside. And for those connoisseurs of whiskey, the smell in this barrel is just sublime. But that's where the grandkids are going to put all their toys. In fact, one of the grandkids could actually get in there, but we'll leave that for another day. And then I can close that up, put my pint on top. There you go, another little snippet. And as promised, plenty there. That'll look nice with
the scant supplies of resin, we can't afford to waste any.
Actually squeezing out of the roller. I'm not making any more, he says. Yeah, alright.
No, we just want to put this, we'll lay this off with a brush. Just leave that there 1 second.
The amount of people that have been photographing this van as they're passing is just unreal. Yeah, just keep shouting in, is this your van, mate? No, no. And my next door neighbour, she calls it the...
Driving with that on.
My next door neighbour calls him the rat van. Have you got a brush? Oh, look at that. Want for nothing.
Brushes, we have got a good supply now. We're just, again, it's an old habits die hard. Beat the bristles out of it.
I usually rub them on a brick wall. It just pulls all, just rub it on brick and it tears all bristles out that you don't want.
Right, let's try and see, it's got bubbles in it because it's, you know, been poured in, it's quite thick.
Just about pick them out.
That'll bring that colour out, absolutely beautiful, that one.
Yeah.
Just, I suppose this is about as close as you would get to painting. Do you want to come right up to this top as well?
Yeah, just go right around it. It's if it fills with water, then so what? I can just give it a little tip, pour it all off. But I don't
seal down this resin.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Seal down there. What water won't get inside it?
No.
Because of this resin.
Well, whiskey couldn't get out of it, so I don't think water's going to get in.
I could smell it in the van.
Oh,
the most unusual smell I've ever smelt in my life was a van loaded full of fiberglass materials, giving off the styrene, and the smell coming out of this whiskey barrel.
Yeah, I can tell you which would have been better. As soon as I opened the door when I was just videoing that segment, my God, the smell was amazing.
This is going to be a test, isn't it, of my deftness. Deftness, is that a word?
Yeah.
My deft touch.
Yeah. I've still got all this to sand yet. It took me absolutely ages to sand that and get the colour out.
Oh, was it blue? Blue. Was
It
there some blue paint?
Yeah, so it painted blue. Must have gone through about 3 sanding discs just to get to the wood.
This was going to be, I think I bought this in what, December? I bought Richard and I one. I was going to do, this is going to be my own lockdown project. I was going to do an aquarium out of it, or
yeah,
make a kennel for splints, but you beat me to that one. And I thought, you know, tools and, you know, I just ain't got the lots of it to do it. But no, it'll be better off with it.
that's your deftness.
Yeah, I've worked out a technique now with
Yeah.
the angle of the dangle. Splints.
Chickadee boo.
That's an even better way to do it.
So I said to my neighbour's son, if I give you some beer, can you and a load of friends pick this barrel up, take it through your garden, pass it over our hedge on Saturday? And he says, yes, no problem. So,
Steve, I've got a bad back, but I'll tell you what, I'm giving it a good go on my own to get hold of them soul beers.
so that's what they're getting.
That's come up mint, that has, mate. Really brought that colour.
12 bottles of beer. And look at that. That is well shiny. That's going to look amazing in the garden. Especially with a load of beer on top of it. Spot on that. That'll all settle, won't it? Will it just settle like liquid?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's not enough on there for it to flow that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's spot on, is that, mate?
Sweet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless with them barrels. You can make all sorts out, you light them up and all sorts.
Yeah. I think the idea of just putting pint glasses on them suits me and Kat.
So
Happy
little
days.
technique not to get customers' door handles covered in gunge.
Go.
Oh, right. See what I've done there? I've just put a little swatch on there, a little sample. Oh, behave yourself. You see where I've got it at the right thickness? It's good and solid, yeah?
Yep.
You see where I've thinned it out? I've done that intentionally just to show you.
Yep.
We call that a pissy appearance. So if you don't put enough pigment in, which general rules on most colours are 10%, but you can do way less than 10% on black because it's such a strong and dense colour. Yellows tend to be a bit pissy, so you're probably really likely to use more than 10% on yellows. Light greens, they're pissy. Oxford blue, that can be a bit pissy.
Grey.
Grey's a really good strong colour. It's pretty much less than 10% on that. You've always had green on all your ponds I've done for me, haven't you?
Always green. Yeah, it's always green. Even the filter that you made.
And then that's the one frequently asked question, what's the most popular colour? The most popular colour is black, but you know what colour this all turns, don't you?
Yeah.
Just a gungy.
Yeah.
It's neither black nor
A gungy,
green.
algae, yeah.
Yeah. So the plant now, there's 5 kilos in there, and I've not reduced it with any resin because it's really flowing really nicely. Sometimes I might put half an inch of resin on top, say when it's cooler, but according to both thermometers it's still just over 20 degrees. Slightly cooler down in the bottom pool there because it's deeper and the styrene vapour from that resin going on is retarding the resin down there. So I'm going to get about 20 square metres out of that pot, which will do not the majority of it, but a really, and again, contamination, massive blue bottle or whatever it is, little thing floating down here. It's all stuff to wind the life out of me. I've just probably got way too much than I need. Well, the kind of way I work, I like to know the exact weight in that, the exact amount of hard nut I can put in that, rather than put in, say, I mean, it's all proportionate, and I suppose I could do it, but it's just the way I work. If we got some over I'm not going to go all around the bottom. I should just tickle the window in, go around the skimmer, maybe do the verticals. We'll just see how it goes. This is the most important operation as far as I'm concerned, to get it as aesthetically as pleasing as possible. And this is the only time when I say to the customer, of all times, you know, this ain't the time to be asking me how many ponds of fiberglass. Where's the furthest I've gone to fiberglass a pond? Well, in fact, just ask them during the day when I'm on something a little less stressful. So the rule, which every rule in this can be bent to suit whatever you're working with, right? Rule is this is like 1%, yeah?
Uh-huh.
So 5 kilos thereabouts would be 50 cc's of hardener. 50 cc's of hardener in that is going to go off in the bucket at this temperature, without doubt. Before I can get it all laid off and nice, then I'm running around wiping any drips up so they haven't got to be taken off with the blade for when you do set it 2, yeah? So I'll go less than the 1%, but not so low that, you know, in the deep bit there, tomorrow morning it's still wet.
So this is just based on experience, how much you can put in and how much you need to put in?
Just make it up as you go along, basically, Steve. Doing it for years.
Man and boy.
So by the time I've got that out, or used whatever I want to, and decided where I'll go in there, you know, when I say about doing these little areas, window frames round these corners possibly, you just want to see how it goes. And then when it comes to doing the second hit, this will have gone off enough for me to
walk on it?
Probably not. I'll get out on the window there. But it will have gone off and I will know how long it's taken to not only set in the bucket, but start to skin over.
Yeah.
And wax over. Again, this wax doesn't rise to the surface like some miracle from God. The wax is locked right the way through from the surface, right the way through to the fiberglass.
Okay.
So when it does come to doing the second hit, depending on how much of this I use, yeah, if I did use half a bucket, I've totally got the measure of how much hardener is going to be needed, and it will be done in a really nonchalant fashion. Because this is kind of, right,
yeah,
it is 22, yeah, you've got some windows, angles, drain, skimmer to get round, nice and tidy, yeah, pipes to get round, you know, it's not just to fucking blast it on and, you know, get it all covered nicely. So let's go. So we'll go down to like 46. Now that 4 cc's might not sound an awful lot, but that could be the tipping point,
yeah,
of it going off. So if I get it on too thin, it's going to look pissy like that, especially when I take the cover down and everything will, again, it's all covered up with water.
Yeah.
As long as it's got flow cut on, it really, you know. This is actually sold as a vapour barrier, not a waterproof barrier. Even though this is waterproof and it would all hold water now. This is sold as a vapour barrier, not a waterproof barrier.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, I'm not too mean to use another roller, and I'm not trying to stretch 30 jobs out of one roller without just thinking them up, but this has been well used, so the amount of contamination by particles off the roller itself will be at a minimum. And I've got to admit, I do like British Racing Green as a colour for
I love it.
ponds. It's nice, isn't it?
I do like black. I've got my doubts over grey, but for me, I always go for green.
I've done them in grey before.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them.
It's not one of them, you know, real popular colours. So that's where we're going to be putting a window in tomorrow, isn't it?
Yay!
Should get about 15 minutes out of this bucket, out of this pot.
Not a lot, is it?
No.
You've got to really motor.
And you don't have to do it in one hit. You don't have to. It's nice if you do. You haven't got to wet. You haven't got to get the tools back out.
No.
And then whatever particles are in this tomorrow, whatever contaminates it before it goes off, then I'll just deal with it for you before we put the window in.
Yeah. That blends in lovely, that, doesn't it? The frame. Blends in lovely, does the frame. Right, with that, we're going to leave Matt to do what he needs to do.
I'm distracting myself talking about how it's all done.
We'll ask him about gloves later. Right, end of day one. Matt's just having a beer with Kat. I'm cooking. This is where we are. You might just be able to make out that part of the floor coat is on, and you can see the wet areas and dry areas. So the plan is, so we're not going to be stepping on the brand new floor coat. Tomorrow morning we're going to put the windows in, which come as a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect that, but thanks to Matt. And the window here. And then when the windows are in place and strapped up and clamped up, the floor coating will be finished. I hope you can get out once the windows are in.
That light on just so you can see.
Yeah, that is shiny, shiny.
Mint,
That
innit?
just looks amazing.
That's come out. Considering there's no tissue on it, or partly tissued some of the way
Yeah,
down. It's
it
come out
actually looks
really
thicker,
nice.
like a, just looks like thicker paint. I bet it isn't though. So yeah, I've just been explaining here. Are we going to put this window in floor coat and then climb out on there? Otherwise you'll not be able to get out, will you, if you do both windows?
I can get out over that wall, can't
Yeah, okay. Trust me, we've got a plan. We've got a plan. But at the moment, we've got to eat first. We've been working all day. That's just looking amazing. So impressed.
Could finish it tonight, but it means tomorrow stepping on that down there, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
Half
we.
of it's gone.
How scary is that? So yeah, Matt's having a Stella. I'm getting the pizza on, and then we're gonna have a few beers. Catch up with you soon.